Welcome to the Maury County Spotlight, where local sports, community stories, and hometown pride take center stage. From big plays to big personalities, this show is a platform for those who gain success through sports here in Maury County. I'm your host, Landen Secrest, a proud native of Columbia and a former dual sport athlete myself, ready to guide the conversation with the past, present, and future of Maury County sports. What's up, everyone? It's the Maury County Spotlight with Landen Secrest. I'm him, and today's episode, we have a very special guest, one of the early guests on the show that I actually personally met this year for the first time, Coach Rochelle from Hampshire Unit School Baseball. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Really, this year was my introduction to the high level of baseball being played down there in Hampshire, and that's going to be a huge focal point of this episode. But Coach, I want to start from your beginning. Obviously, most know you as Coach Rochelle now, but talk about your early upbringing in the Hampshire community. You are from Hampshire, went to school there. Talk about growing up in what's considered a smaller community in the greater Maury County area.
Yeah, so like you said, I grew up in Hampshire. My parents live, 2 minutes from the school. I went there, started there in kindergarten, went there all throughout high school, the whole 9 yards. Pretty much had the same group of friends from middle school on. It's a small community. I think that's a blessing, obviously. A lot of life lessons learned from Hampshire. But, a lot of different guys in my friend group who had different hobbies, but we just kind of found things to do to hang out and to spend time together. Obviously, sports was a big part of that with my friends that played sports, but it's almost like an 80s movie kind of setting when you think about the setting there. Riding bikes after school down the back roads, camping out in someone's 3-acre backyard, with a campfire and just enjoying time with the boys. But really, I guess the biggest thing that I took away, and I didn't realize this till I got older, was, growing up in that small community, you can't really run away from anyone. If you're in a high school that's got 1,000 people in it, if you and a friend have a little bit of a quarrel, you can kind of just move on and find other friends. But when you're
Right.
in such a small environment, it kind of teaches you at a young age how to let a lot of the little stuff go, but also how to meet conflict and how to resolve those things and try to keep those relationships. And so, again, that's something I didn't realize until I moved to college at Tennessee Tech, whenever I was around a bunch of people. And if someone said something wrong to me, I was like, I just don't have to talk to that person anymore. But I had learned in the past in that smaller setting, like, these things, I want these relationships to continue. Here's how we're gonna work it out. So that was probably like my biggest takeaway from being in that small setting and what it's given me in my life.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, Hampshire Unit School is one of 3 unit schools in Maury County. You kind of touched on it a little bit there, Coach, but talk about the dynamic of being at a unit school versus, being at a school that in some cases is larger than the entire population of where you live. And it impact you as far as, was there an adjustment when you moved on to like a Tennessee Tech?
I think, you kind of learn, really, it's when you get to high school when you kind of learn how to interact with the younger kids. I actually substitute taught whenever I was in college at Hampshire, and I did everything from elementary PE to second grade to middle school to high school. I did all of it. And so there's really something really cool about Hampshire. So when we do our homecoming every year at a basketball game, there's a crown bearer and girl that walks with him, if you will. I actually got to do that in kindergarten and then had the opportunity to be on the other side of that as a senior and just kind of having the interaction with those younger kids who now those younger kids that were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I actually coached some of those kids when I've been at Hampshire as the coach. But just, I don't know, it's just such a tight knit community. You know everybody, you know their mom, you know their dad, you know their cousins and all the gossip, but you kind of just have a special bond with those people. And, I think it shapes your character a little bit because when you move off to, like I said, when I moved off to Cookeville, I still had friends and I was close with those friends, but in a sense, I still felt alone a little bit because I just wasn't surrounded by everyone that knew me and everything about me. And so that was a big adjustment moving away, for me.
Yeah, and when you talk about growing up in the community compared to a Columbia type or even the modern era Spring Hill, not as many things to do if you're into shopping and all of that. Youth sports is a huge way to be active and interact with your friends. How did grassroots level of sports impact you early on that, hey, just give you something to do?
Yeah, I mean, and this is before travel ball era, whenever I was playing or high school baseball. So really your sports were your summer programs with your high school teams and then school sports. So, you had your youth leagues and all that around Mount Pleasant. But once you got to upper middle school and high school, the coaches that you had at Hampshire were the coaches that shaped how you learn the game, how you respect the game, how you still love the game. And so we weren't it wasn't so much in-depth sports, right? It wasn't year-round baseball like we have now, where every kid, I've got, I think 10 of my 17 guys next year are playing travel ball all summer. So, in a way, I liked how it was when I was in school because you had time to be a kid in the summer. You go to camps, you do those things that we talked about, you ride your bike in the back roads. But obviously, all those important traits that you learn from sports, they just had their window that you did those in. And so, sports are obviously a big part of my life now. They were a big part of my life in college, but even back then, it was kind of just like a hobby, and we can talk about more about the Hampshire experience, specifically for me when it comes to sports in a minute. But it was kind of just like a hobby, and now it's kind of not so much a hobby for some kids, I think nowadays. So
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense when you compare the old age or the older era of sports. It was
now
much
don't
more
be calling
relaxed.
me
Now it's
old now. I'm not old.
well, yeah. Well, compared to, someone like me, even they would probably consider me old. So yeah, I'd probably be in that same
Fair,
category. But
probably
even
so.
my era of growing up in sports is much different than the kids that grow up now. It's much more like, hey, you're in this thing 100%. You have no time for a summer job if you want to bale hay on the side or anything like that. No, you got
Yeah.
to dedicate yourself to the sport. I know we're going to get into your coaching experience much later into the show, but talk about how you emphasize that as a coach that, hey, baseball or the sport is not your life. I want you to be committed, but also I want you to do other things, whether it's outside of Hampshire or not.
That's difficult. I'll be completely transparent because during the season, baseball is my life. I mean, I work. I'm a non-faculty coach, so obviously I work my job during the day. But from 2:30 until about 10:30 every weekday during the season, it is my life. And so maybe that's a lesson I probably need to hear a little bit more too. But I think when you explain, most of the kids that are going to play high school sports are not. And so when you explain to them, look, we're here to obviously learn how to work as a team and all those traits that you learn, but also we're here to have fun. And we have a Hawks baseball academy, and we'll have kindergartners through fifth graders one Saturday every year. We'll bring them out. We'll go through drills. We'll teach them how to hit, throw, catch, all the whole thing. But one of our main rules, we have three main rules or three reasons that we're here. One of the main ones is we're here to have fun because if you're not having fun, then you're not going to want to continue to do it. And, I think leading back into the whole year round sports, sometimes it becomes more of a job for these kids. And so, I think, like you said, in your experience, that time off, you kind of miss the game. I miss the game now, obviously, because I'm not playing it. So it kind of gives you like a little bit of a taste of, hey, when this thing's over, it's over. So just obviously you want to put in the hard work. You want to be successful, and all those things are fantastic. We love them. That's what we're striving to do. But also we want to have fun. And so we try to keep it lax. I say all the time, I'm a player's coach. I'm going to back my guys. I had coaches in high school that were like that. My basketball coach, specifically my junior and senior year, was hey, you get a technical and you got to go to the office. I got your back. All right. I got your back. I'm going to go to war for you. And so I kind of I have kind of stolen some of the best traits out of coaches that I've had in the past and try to like mix that into who I want to be as a coach. Obviously, no one's perfect. I have traits that are bad, I'm sure. So did they. So I'm not criticizing those guys because they were all fantastic. But, I try to take maybe that lesson of, I'm a player's guy. Like, I want to have fun. I want to cut up with the boys, so, as we call them. But when it's time to get serious and lock down and lock in, that's the phrase that my team loves to mock me with is I love to say lock in, lock
Hey,
in.
I agree with that, coach. And that's what I was talking about. The kids now, or the people that are playing now, might consider us as the older generation because I say lock in all
I
the
say it
time.
all the time. Yes. You ask any Hampshire baseball player of one of the top three things that I say lock in is one of them. So
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing that I live by. Sometimes you just you plain and simple have to lock in. Now, Coach, you talked about some of the different sports you played growing up. Who were some athletes or like those first teams that you like, maybe professional teams, college teams that like, hey, I want to be that guy when I grow up. I want to play for that team when I grow up. Who was that for you?
Oh, the Braves. Obviously, I'm a huge baseball guy. Love the Braves. Watch them every night during the summer with my family. Growing up around the supper table. Chipper Jones. How can you not say Chipper Jones? I was an
Hmm.
outfielder when I played in high school a lot, so I really like Bryce Harper, even though he never played for the Braves. I'm a big Bryce Harper fan. Just his swing is just phenomenal, and just he has that edge to him. I've heard it said, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, and he's a warrior. And so, just kind of try to model my game after him. If you ask guys that I played with, I was more of an Adam Dunn. I was either going to hit the ball at the ballpark or I was going to strike out, go
Right.
sit on the dugout. So, but Adam Dunn and there was another guy, Jason Worth, are the two guys that my game was modeled after. But I love Bryce Harper, love Chipper Jones, Martin Prado.
Hmm.
That's a deep dig for anyone who loves baseball.
Oh
He's
yeah.
kind of a play everywhere guy. Love Martine. Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, come on now. You want to talk about the best swing in the history of baseball. If that guy stays healthy, he's the home run leader of all time. So those are a few of the guys. Like basketball, watching up, love the NBA. I was a big Pistons fan, still am. I hate that the
Hmm.
season ended the way it did, but
Yeah,
Chauncey
that's
Billups,
tough.
Mr. Big Shot. I love Mr. Big Shot. Ben Wallace. I was a 6'0" center for the high school team. And so I thought I was Ben Wallace when I was really the height of Chauncey Billups. So
Yeah.
football, obviously love football. I love every sport. Sports, you may ask me what my other hobbies are. There aren't really any. It's sports. That's it. I'll watch them. I'm at home. I'm watching them. If I'm not watching Disney Plus with my kid, we're watching baseball. It's baseball season, so we're watching Braves every night. So
Yeah, yeah, that sounds a lot like me as somebody who likes sports 100%. I try and kind of balance it out. I love basketball, baseball, football, the traditional sports, but I try and branch out now, especially and learn about the other games. But you spoke about, like you said, some deep cuts, like in baseball players. Are there any teams or players that you just hate? You don't like them? Because I know there's always some athletes for some players that you just don't like. Who are those people for you?
I mean, I can't stand the Phillies, obviously. And I hate Alabama. Everything Alabama, I despise. My brother-in-law is a big Alabama fan, so there's no harm. I mean, there's no hate that way, but I hate them because they're good. I mean, when you win 7 national championships, it's kind of like the Spurs when I was growing up. The Spurs of Greg Popovich were just that team every year that the Pistons met them, I think, in back-to-back finals, and the Spurs won both of. I will say there was a guy that I used to hate when I was in middle school, Kobe Bryant. But hold on, that we flipped the script on him a little bit. So I get to high school basketball as a freshman, and just everybody there is just a Kobe guy, and I'm like, I don't know, this LeBron James guy's pretty good. Like,
Brother.
so I ended up actually flipping to the Kobe side, being around those guys in the locker room after some torture from those guys, listening to that Lil Wayne song 24. Could still
Mhm.
sing that song word for word. But, loved Kobe Bryant. Once I got to high school, he's probably one of my favorite basketball players. But yeah, hate the Phillies, hate Alabama. Individual players, I mean, there's not really anyone that comes to mind in particular. Now, there's probably some guys I played against that I didn't really like, but that's 15 years ago. So those memories are long gone, thankfully.
Right. So let's focus in on your high school career now. What sports did you play? And obviously, I can probably sense that your primary sport was baseball. But talk about your initial experience going into high school or the upper school at Hampshire Unit School and playing sports, and how excited were you to finally play at the varsity level?
Yeah, so believe it or not, basketball was actually my first love whenever I was in school. We start intramurals there at Hampshire when I was in school in the third grade. And so third, fourth, and fifth graders would play twice, I think it was twice a week on the actual gym
Hmm.
against different kids from the school. So I fell in love with basketball early on. And so I love basketball growing up. That's where I focused. I played a little AAU in the summer. But, at Hampshire, like their other unit schools, the eighth graders can move up once their middle school season's over and play in the high school team and the varsity
Right,
team.
right.
And I did that. I played basketball and baseball. And then for basketball, our coach my first few years made us run cross country as our way of conditioning for the season. Hated every minute of
Wow.
it. Embarrassingly would get on Facebook after we would have to run and be like, this is so dumb, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm friends with the coach's wife. So she's seeing this and sending
Hmm.
it to him and like, why are your players bashing you and whatever? We fought that and fought that and fought that. And a funny story real quick. So we used to run down this road, Biffle Lane. It's downtown Hampshire, right off the main road.
Hmm.
And there was a girl that was a couple years older than us that lived on that road. And we'd run about a mile and a half down Biffle Lane. We had to run back. So it'd be 3 miles for the 5K. Well, we get about, I don't know, half a mile into it. And this girl drives by on her Jeep. And me and about 8 other guys just hop onto the side of this Jeep and just hold on, and we ride the sheep all the way to where we're supposed to turn around, and we get about halfway back. Well, we're running back. Well, we're young, dumb kids. We get back and we ran like a 8-minute 5K because the coach is timing every practice. And so,
Right.
long story short, he finds out what happened. Basically, the basketball coach was tired of fighting all that, so he told us that we didn't have to do that anymore. But I'm sorry. I got way off on a tangent, but
No, you're
I
good.
wanted to tell that story. But no, I played basketball. It was my first love. Moved up as an eighth grader. Started a few games as an eighth grader. Did the same thing with baseball. Moved up as an eighth grader. My first memory in high school baseball was we were at Maury County playing against those guys on the road, and our coach Justin Intrican at the time, he's now at Siegel, had called on me to go be a defensive sub in the outfield. Well, I had
Hmm.
forgotten my cleats. And so my first
No.
opportunity that I was going to get to have in high school baseball, I didn't actually get it because once he found out I was running out on the field. And he's like, where are your cleats? I'm like, at the house. He's like, nah, get back in here. My first opportunity later on in the year in the district tournament, our first baseman was a senior. He actually was going to catch a ball, an infield outfield routine in the pregame, and the
Hmm.
sun got in his eyes and he missed it. And the ball hit him square in the nose and broke his nose.
That's
And
not
so
good.
I was thrown into the fire as first baseman as an eighth grader in the district tournament. So that was my first experience. A lot of good memories. We didn't enjoy a lot of success. Now, there was one year in basketball where it felt like this was our year. But man, we played some tough teams. The district is the size they are now. I mean, even in baseball, you're talking
Hmm.
CA, Richland, Cornersville, Mount Pleasant, and then plus all the unit schools. There was one year, Will Boshears, I'll have to give him a shout out. He's probably the best basketball player in Hampshire history. His senior year, we had a really good team. That was fun. And I tell my guys on the team, like, they ask me about these things.
Hmm.
And I'm like, guys, I really love basketball growing up because you get in at the old CA gym, especially. I don't know if you ever played there, but that old
Oh yeah.
house
Yeah, I
where
remember.
you're on the court, everyone's above you, man, that I
On
could have
top.
played 100 games there a year. I love that atmosphere. We beat them my junior year. We beat them on a tip in at the buzzer. Trenton Simmons tips one in. And man, just to hear it go from chaos to just dead silence is just amazing. But like I said, I tell my guys, like, there's just nothing like running out of a basketball locker room with a good team and a packed
Hmm.
house. Like, there's no, and put on by
Jeezy.
Young Jeezy's playing on the speakers. Like, there ain't nothing that gets me more fired up than that right there. Like, I'll play that song before a baseball game, but it just don't hit the same.
Right. Yeah, and that's crazy that you recollect all those things because you clearly have a very unique early high school experience, and we haven't even got to the later high school experience as far as being a senior yet. But I would have never thought that you were so invested in basketball and like the
I was,
Detroit
yeah.
Pistons and all of that. I mean, that's
Don't go
really
look at my old Facebook videos. I thought I could make edits when the Lakers and Celtics played in the finals in 2009. So,
that that's really cool. That is very cool, especially because I mean you're now modernly a baseball coach, but having first love in basketball, I share the similarity. That was the first sport that I played at age 5, and just shooting hoops, and you feel like an insane level of confidence when you're just in the driveway and you see these
yeah.
guys professionally that you can't necessarily emulate in a baseball or a football. Like you can see yourself in those people, but hey, if I pick up the basketball, no matter if it's a Spalding or a Wilson or if it's a kickball, I think I
Yeah.
have a chance. You think you
Yeah,
have
I'm
a chance?
Dwayne Wade in my backyard, let me tell you.
And that's 100%. I can definitely see that. Now, when you get to the latter half of your high school career, talk about those lasting moments that you remember being a senior. I mean, you're a Hampshire lifer. Talk about all those things and those magic moments of being a senior and representing Hampshire Hawks just for one last season.
Yeah, it was a tough year. We had Our top two arms, both of those guys got hurt and missed basically the whole season. My cousin had moved to Hampshire in the 8th grade to come play along with me at the school. He actually had to have Tommy John. He was our number one pitcher.
Hmm.
And then our starting shortstop had a torn hip flexor like a week into the season. So he's out all year. So I said I was primarily an outfielder. Well, I knew the game well enough that when guys start getting hurt, I just played everywhere. I was not a pitcher. I was not, and I'll tell my guys this to the day. I'm not a pitcher. I'll throw BP, but I couldn't throw it over 58 miles an hour. Like, I'm not a pitcher. But senior night, I do remember senior night against Frank Hughes. I started on the mound because I was a senior, and I mean, we only had like three more guys after that. So I started on the mound, and I threw okay on the mound and long enough and good enough to get the win, but I also hit a grand slam. So I really senior night. If that's the only thing I remember about my senior year, then I'll take that. That's a pretty good memory to put away. Also, side note on that, 1 year exactly to the day later, I hit a grand slam in an intramural softball game. So
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
even realize that till I hit it, and then I got home and looking at Facebook memories. Like, wait a second, those are the same day.
It's the same
But
date.
that's my biggest memory. Obviously, I remember the last time I stepped off the field at Richland against, I believe it was Cornersville is who we were playing. I was dumb at the time. I was like, I've had a good run at this baseball thing. I was way more upset when basketball was over. I was like, I had a good run at this baseball thing. I've been playing it for a long time. It's about time. But, looking back, I regret those thoughts. But, we all hang the cleats up at some point. It's a famous quote from the Moneyball movie. Some of us are blessed to play longer, some of us not so much. So
Yeah, definitely. And when that time comes, that time comes. Now you talked about it a little bit as far as local teams and local players. As far as your high school career, if you can remember some of your biggest rivals at the time, the divisions and the districts were a little different, but tell the folks who was Blake Rochelle's number one rival, Hampshire's number one rivals at the time.
I mean, I would like to say it was still Culleoka back then, just because I knew several of the guys on the team there. But honestly, for me, it was a personal rivalry against Mount Pleasant, because that's where my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, went to school. That's where all of my friends from Little League that I played with growing up, they all went to Mount Pleasant because I played in a Mount Pleasant league. And
Right.
so the personal rivalry where I wanted to perform the best and now coach the best is Mount Pleasant. But I think more of the school rivalry, there was still that Culleoka. It's that unit school vibe, man. Like the
Hmm.
Santa Fe, Culleoka, Hampshire triangle of rivalries is kind of just unique in itself. Not like anything else in the state, I think. But that's kind of where I was. Now, we weren't super successful, so it's really hard to keep a rivalry going when there's not split wins and losses. But, Santa Fe was probably another rival, if you will. I mean, we competed a lot better with those guys, but there wasn't no animosity in any of that. So,
Yeah, and it's still kind of the same now, I would say, as far as the rivalries between the unit schools. You talk to the modern day players in any sport, and what game's the biggest game on the schedule? You probably think it's the Santa Fe versus Culleoka, or the Hampshire versus Santa Fe, or all those types of games. And I'm sure even the Hampshire Mount Pleasant rivalry, even though Mount Pleasant's not a unit school, is the same thing for those guys and girls. So I can 100% echo that rivalry aspect. Definitely stacks up as some of the larger rivals in Maury County. Now, Coach, you told me this when I first initially met you this year when we brought the crew down to Hampshire. You said you initially wanted to go to Syracuse and study broadcasting or journalism. Talk about that and what your interests were outside of maybe sports that you were interested in going to college to major for. Talk about that because you brought that up to me and I was like, dude, this guy going to Newhouse, that would be absolutely amazing. Talk about that, coach.
yeah, I mean, that was always kind of my dream until, as a kid, you dream of being an astronaut or a dentist, a police officer. I always just wanted to be involved in sports. From the time that I had a TV in my room until I left for college, my TV was either on Food Network or ESPN Sports Center. And I'm talking old school Sports Center where they actually played highlights, not people just blabbering all night.
Right.
Like actual highlights, Sports Center top 10. I probably watched every day's top 10 5 times a day. Like I just love watching sports, all sports. Certainly some more than others. I just wanted to be involved in that somehow. Love listening to sports on the talk radio at the time. Podcasts really hadn't taken off at that time. Now, obviously, that's something I'm very much into now. But like I said, I want to go to Syracuse because that's the school to go to for broadcasting. If you pick one out of the country, that's where you go. That's where a lot of these guys that are in Connecticut and Bristol, that's where they went. Love the Big Orange. Jim Boheim at Syracuse, the basketball coach at the time, legendary guy. All those things that kind of draw you that way. But then I start dating a girl from home, and it's like, do I really want to move to, upstate New York and get out of my bubble? And that's kind of what really kept me from going. I didn't want to leave that. Like I said, I grew up in a small community. I was used to that environment. I didn't want to leave that, honestly. So decided to go to Tennessee Tech with two of my friends from high school, and then just kind of figured it out when I got there, honestly. I actually had an offer to be a manager for the baseball team, turned that down. Again, another regret that I have. The coach actually reached out to me personally and was like, "Hey, got a spot open if you want in, and I said no. I said I want to focus on my studies. So I didn't even do that even after the fact. But
When we come back, you'll hear more of the stories that make Maury County sports special. You're listening to the Maury County Spotlight. I believe everybody has a story that's worth telling. If you're making an impact through sports in Maury County, whether it's on the field, on the court, in the classroom, or behind the scenes, I'd love to hear from you. My mission is simple. I want to celebrate the people who make local sports special and give them a platform to share their journeys. If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode, reach out today. Your story could be the next one in the spotlight. Yeah,
so
it's very interesting that that's a moment that I can pinpoint. That was my first time meeting you, and I'm interested in media. This is what I do as a relatively young person in the industry, and I was like, this guy, he's for real. He talks my language, and that's the perfect segue into the next half of what we're talking about in the magical 2-year run that is Hampshire Baseball. Coach, you gave me a media guide with pronunciations and stats. And that was so impressive. As a local broadcaster, you don't know how much that means to know and express on the radio. I mean, this past 2 years, the past couple of years at Hampshire has been great. Talk about kind of the culture change. You said when you played, you guys didn't have a lot of success, and now you're running the ship. And you guys, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, are on the top of the world is it when it comes to Hampshire success. So talk about that, Coach.
yeah, I mean, I started in 2021. I was assistant a few years before that. And, I had seen in the past, and this is not a push against anyone else that's ever been there. I love everyone that's been there. But I had seen in the past where there had been a collection of talent there. We just couldn't figure out the rest of the stuff, if you will, to put it nicely. And I couldn't let that happen. So whenever the head coach in 2021 left and Mr. Brewer, who's now the principal, offered me the job, I was like, absolutely. Now, am I going to sit here and say I'm the best person for the job? Do I know all the answers? No, but I felt like the fit was perfect. Like you said, I'm a Hampshire lifer. I know how the community, will respond to certain things. We fundraise based off of what our community enjoys doing, for example. But I just didn't want to see a collection of talent that I knew was coming go to waste. And I knew Eli Stevens in the 5th grade. I was like, that guy's going to be a dude. I knew Dalen Sims in the 5th grade. He's a stud. I knew those Nicholson boys. Like, I could see the pipeline coming. In 21, I'm thinking, but we've got to lay the culture. We got to lay the groundwork first. And those guys from 21 to 23, those are the guys that, don't get the recognition that they deserve, but who are as much responsible for the success this year. The Jed Pages, guy on my staff now, Eric Delt, Blake Morrow, Hayden Seaman, all those guys that came to work, put in the work, set the standard of, hey, we're going to do what coach says. Like, we're not going to come here and goof around. This isn't recess. Like, when we're on the diamond, we're putting in the work. We're going to do it the right way. And those guys laying that foundation, that's really when it started for me. And then you couple that foundation and that culture with talent. And then you end up with the last 2 seasons that we've had. Super talented. They're going to go do incredible things at the next level. I have no doubt that Dalen and Eli are going to absolutely show out next year. But it's also those guys that come before. It's the we, not me mentality. That was our slogan. We usually come up with a team slogan every year. In 2023, that was our slogan. It's not about me. Okay. It's about we. It's about the guys who were here before and the guys that are going to come after. The guys that were here before have set the foundation. Let's do right by them, right? We want to give them something to be proud of when they come back, but also let's leave this in a better place than even we found it. And that's for the guys that are coming next. And so that's, again, the talent's awesome. The talent's been made it my job a lot easier. We said that on the pregame show.
Yeah.
When you give the ball to Dalen Sims and you're like, all right, buddy, go get him on the mound. Like, all right, now I just got to worry about the defense and the offense, and he's going to take care of the pitching. That goes a long way, but it's a lot of the other things too that just go unseen. There's and this is every coach in the county and every coach everywhere. There's so many things that people don't even see
Hmm.
that these kids do, that these coaches do, this coaching staff does. My brother, my assistant coach, love him to death. He puts in more work for this program than anybody. The amount of scouting that he does based off of Facebook, your broadcast
Hmm.
on the front porch. Yeah, we've watched just about every one of those with opponents that we've played. So there's so many hands that go into making this team successful, and I'm just so proud of it. We're going to continue to keep that ball rolling. We still got a good collection of guys. We're losing some good players, but we're getting some good players too. So
Right. And when you're a really good team in a smaller community, talk about that community investment now that they see success. I'm talking more people showing up to the games, more people working the concession stand. I mean, heck, even the sound crew and little kids playing
yeah,
at the park beside the Hampshire baseball field. Talk about the community investment now that they see the proof in the pudding that you guys can win some baseball games.
and it goes back to what I said earlier about it just feels like a movie when like everyone just comes together to fill a job. If I sat here and thought of everyone, I'd forget someone, but it's kind of like my junior year that I was talking about with our basketball team. This community was starving for a competitive sports program. People just inherently competition. They love seeing people compete. That goes back thousands of years, even back
Yeah.
to the Coliseum when people just want to go watch dudes just go at it, right? And so this community has been wanting another competitive program, and so it's really just, hey, the fire's put together, all the kindlings there, the logs are there, just throw that spark in there and the community's going to take over. And that's what I'm so proud of. I look like the figurehead because I'm the head coach of the program, but again, it is just so much investment from everyone else, all the fundraisers that we do. It's really, when you sit back and look, like we had our alumni game a few weeks ago. We do that once a year where anyone that's ever played baseball at Hampshire, we have them come back. We'll play a full game, alumni on alumni. We'll even get some of our guys involved,
Yeah, that's amazing.
and just the compliments, it really started when we started investing in our grass. Honestly, whenever
Yeah.
we started investing in our grass and our turf, and it's uniform and striped and it looks amazing. Shout out to Dustin Carroll, Hampshire alumni, another one pouring into the community. That's when you start hearing those chirps, oh wow, they're doing something different down there. That looks really nice. Then they come to a ball game and we're up 8-0, and Eli Stevens has a no hitter in the fifth inning. And they're like, whoa, like, okay, they got something cooking down here. So again, it's a community involvement. It's, again, I'm just so happy to be a part of it because I love Hampshire so much for all the things that it gave me. I just hope I can give just a little bit back and give these guys the same experience, if not better than what I had.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, giving back to the community and then seeing the community invest back into the team, and it's a give program all around, and that's really important as someone. I mean, my only exposure to Hampshire baseball is bringing the radio crew down there this year for the game of the week, which I believe is the only time the entire radio crew has brought the set to Hampshire, and to see the smiles on people's faces down there, the players super excited, you super excited to come talk to
I
us.
was tickled to death,
Yeah,
as we
it was
say.
just amazing for you guys to care about us as much as we tried to shine the spotlight on you all this season. And Coach, talk about some of those memorable moments from this year. A lot of wins happened, and a lot of moments like no hitters, and you got two players that committed to go play at college at Jackson State. What are some memorable moments that cross your mind from this season?
I mean, the obvious ones are, the 20 wins, the first time in Hampshire baseball history. That's a big number. We were one short of that last year. It's a number we've been wanting to get to for a long time. The two big district tournament wins, one against Mount Pleasant, just an absolute nail biter. Dalen Sims with the perfect game through 5 2/3 in that game. So winning that one and then beating Culleoka again to get back to the region. Our team goal this year was to get to Substate. That's where we thought if we could get there, we have the arms to win. Obviously, we came up short, but getting back to the region, we wanted to perform last year. And so our first region win in Hampshire baseball history, another awesome memory that these guys will have forever. Two huge wins that stick out to me, both on the road. So second week of the season, we go to Chapel Hill to play Forest with their number one pitcher going. And we score 2 runs in the first inning. We end up beating them in extra innings. I think it was in the 8th inning. And then obviously the big win on the road at Eagleville to set up a winner take all game at home for the district championship. Another big win there. Dalen Sims on the mound for both of those games. So it continues to show the impact that he's made on this program. A couple guys getting their first home runs this year in high school ball. Dakota Disbro hitting one at Collinwood. Cash Boshiers hitting one at home against Eagleville. And we were actually down, I believe, 7-0 in that game. And Cash hits a homer, and before you know it, it's 7-6. So really, his homer was a pivotal moment in that game that got us back in it. Those are some of the big memories that stick out. There's just nothing like the pouring so much into this program and then, getting that win to get to that next level, right? So again, we've only been to the region tournament twice, and we've done it each of the last 2 years. So that kind of just that moment, just that off your shoulders moment when you finally get over that hurdle again, that's the best memory for me, is just enjoying those moments. We actually had our public address guy, Scott Story. He came to that game against Culleoka at Mount Pleasant and brought a lot of his league ball players with him to this game.
Yeah.
And after the game's over, he brings all these kids on the field, and they're all wanting autographs from my players. So like their catcher's going up to Cam Nicholson's like, "Hey, you're their catcher. I'm our catcher. Will you sign my hat?" And so just seeing my guys get to enjoy that, it's just a really cool moment. Just soaking it up, enjoying those moments that we'll have forever. Obviously, after every win, getting to see my son, my 3-year-old boy, running the field, to me, those are memories that he'll never remember, but I'll always have special moments like that. That just, you're away from your family a lot when you do this. So whenever my family is there, it makes it a lot easier. It makes it more memorable for me.
Yeah, and talk about the impact of seeing 2 players like a Dalen Sims and a Eli Stevens commit and sign to play at the next level, what that does for the future of Hampshire as far as people looking up to them, the kids that are in kindergarten now, and they see that, hey, I might be able to make it out of Hampshire and make something of my career. How impactful is just those 2 signings to go play at the next level?
Yeah, I think it shows that the exposure's there. If you're good enough and you put in the work, and those guys put in work not just for us. I mean, those are guys that are putting in work all summer. But we hadn't had a guy go to college to play baseball since 2017. That was my brother at Freed Hardman. And so, it kind of discourages players like, I'm at Hampshire. I can't make it to play college ball. No one's going to see me down here. That's not true. I mean, with these 2 guys going, and that's a lot of work again for my brother behind the scenes. He's got a lot of connections with some college coaches. So I think it shows that, hey, look, if you're good enough, you put in the work, and if you have the right attitude, because that's another thing I tell my guys is, I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to lose credibility to try to get you somewhere. Like, because if a coach comes and asks me, I'm going to be honest with him, because I'm not going to jeopardize the next guy's opportunity. And so I think it showed that, hey, you do things the right way. You have a certain skill level, you're going to get seen. Like, I mean, and now that we're kind of on the radar a little bit more, like Hampshire's just not what it had been. If a guy goes out and gets all season MVP in District 10 for Hampshire, it's like, okay, he's a good player. Like, he's not no slouch, no
Right.
scrub, I guess you could say. But I remember that from the pregame.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a huge impact for those 2 players to sign, for you to be a coach that surpassed 50 wins this season, the era of success. And that means there's a lot in store for the future. What are you, Coach, most excited for the future of Hampshire as a community, but also in your baseball program?
Yeah, I'm excited with the continued growth of our facilities. Maury County Schools continue to invest in all of the county schools. And we have some big plans that Hampshire's going to provide, hopefully, in the next year or so. We're working for a big improvement to our field, and so hopefully that's coming down the pipeline a little bit. But really, as far as the baseball program goes, I talked to Dakota Disbro before our last region tournament game, and I said, there's been this line of really good arms that have come through here and kind of been that workhorse for this program. This last few years, obviously, it's been two guys. It's been Eli and Dalen, right? And before that, it was Jed Page is the guy that I mentioned
Right,
earlier.
right.
And before that, it was Aaron Rochelle, my brother. And before that, it was my cousin Sean Blaylock. I said, Dakota, you're that next guy. Like your stuff is good enough. You're a left-handed pitcher that throws, upper 70s with a two-seamer and a slider that go opposite directions out of the same arm slot. That's one of the things I'm most excited for is to see him make that sophomore to junior year leap, and continue to mature and continue to add velocity and see him. I'm excited about the pitching. I'm excited about it, reluctantly excited about it, I guess I could say, because I am losing such good arms. But it's kind of one of those. It's like unknowns really, and I know, but I mean, I know I've got some guys in him and Theron Brown and some really good eighth graders that are going to be freshmen. But I'm excited to see those two guys on the mound. A lot of the offense is going to be about the same. Again, it's high school sports. It's like college. You got to fill holes every single year. But really, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to the most. And of course, this freshman class coming off a historic, I mean, words can't even describe the season that they had. They got seven,
Huge.
eighth graders moving up. We had four of those guys move up with us at the end of the season. They were with us in the region tournament. Couple really good arms and some really good sticks. I'm not expecting them to come out and be world beaters next year as
Right.
freshmen, but just to see them develop. I always said that guys from freshman to sophomore year in baseball, that's your biggest year for development, and
Hmm.
that's where you see the biggest jump. And the numbers speak to that this year for our sophomores. And so I'm excited to see where we are next year and then in the years forward as those guys continue to progress.
Yeah, and it looks like there's a lot to look forward to in the Hampshire community. Now, Coach, I ask everybody that appears on the Maury County Spotlight this one big question, and that question is, at what point in your life did you know that sports could help you be successful in what you wanted to do?
Well, I think it was really in college, like later on in my life. Like I said earlier, me and my family, we would watch the Braves every night in the summer. Obviously, during school, I'm playing sports, so we can't watch them. But every summer, we'd watch them every night. And so when I went to college, that tradition kind of came with me. I wasn't doing anything else. I was, studying and watching the Braves every night that they were on. And I don't really know a specific moment, but at some point in time, I was like, these guys are playing in August at 6 o'clock in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is like game 108 for them. Like the amount of discipline for your body to still be in shape to play that long and that far, the amount of, like I said, discipline, but also desire, like those traits, they translate so much more than just the sports. Like that mental fortitude, like when things get hard, when life doesn't really go the way you want it to, that it may sound, childish, but it really does teach you those. I mean, even for example, my guys during the
Hmm.
season, we're on the diamond every day and even some Sunday nights. So like you just show up and you do your job. Some days you're just going to be there and you're just going to do your job and then you're just going to get to the next day. Some days are just all about getting to the next day. And that's how life is, man. That's how, there are times and I mean, there's been times in my life where it's like, man, it just is really hard to get up and get going today. Like yesterday, getting up for work at 5 o'clock, it was really tough. But you get up, you do your job, you move on, and then you move on to days like today. Everybody loves a Friday, right? So, I think
Yeah.
just the perseverance that pro baseball season kind of just, because I felt like when I was in college, I was part of the Braves. I mean, when Landon, I'm not kidding you. I watched every single game,
Everyone.
every game. And so whenever it gets to the postseason against the Dodgers and it's game four and they blow that game and don't bring Kimbrel in, they lose. I actually had tickets to game five in Atlanta that whatever. So when they blow that game in LA, when Juan Uribe hit that home run, I felt like I lost. Like, like
It
I
was a
felt like
part
I
of
was
you.
part of that. I was like, part of me just died tonight in Los Angeles. But, investing in it's like, I don't know, it just kind of subconsciously teaches you those lessons, even when you're not like paying attention. And I think it's the case for a lot of guys, honestly, in high school. Like they're learning these lessons. It just doesn't click until
Right.
later on in
Later
life,
on.
because they're so focused on so many other things. We talk about, I guess we're considered old now, but
I guess,
all the
yeah.
many distractions that we didn't have. Like when I talk about playing with my friends, to play with your friends now, you just hop on the PlayStation and you get in a party and you chat and you play a game,
Right.
like it's so different back then. And so there's so many distractions, but, I hope that I'm teaching my guys the lessons that I learned. It's just, I hope they'll figure it out later. It's kind of like that song There's Outlook song by Morgan Wallen. It's a really good song. It kind of ties that a little bit together. But
Yeah, it's definitely, you've taught me a lot just in this episode about what you mean to the community and what the community's done for you and how you can represent and your guys that play for your team can represent the community for something larger. And I mean, it's just the walk of life, man. Coming from Hampshire, that you can make it out of there and you can be something special, but it's not going to be a cakewalk like you were just talking about. There's going to be adversities. There's going to be a career maybe like yours that doesn't have the success that you may envision. And that's the biggest thing. You got to persevere. And that is what I would consider your story, being a successful coach after but not being a so successful player. And you're reaping the benefits of everything in Hampshire down there, Coach. I appreciate you so much for this episode, man. It's been more than I can imagine. I know it's going to mean a lot to the community of Hampshire to be represented, folks. This has been Coach Blake Rochelle. Coach, I appreciate you so much for joining me today.
hey, thanks for having us on, and thank you guys always for spotlighting our community. We may be unique, but even if it's a way of life that some people like, some people maybe don't prefer, I think it still is a story that deserves to be told. So I thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Maury County Spotlight. I'm your host, Landen Secrest, signing off until next time.